Hi guys, welcome back to channel. Naveen this side from Futuretechera. Today we're going to learn this things called how to create flow in Microsoft Power desktop and how many way to go for create the particular desktop flow. Okay. So guys, we have two way to go for these things to create the Microsoft flow. First one is the cloud and second one we can go for these things called into desktop. Okay. So let me go for these things called check one by one. First we'll go for these things called desktop. So in desktop we'll go for these things called create the particular flow. So that's why we'll try to go for open the Power Automate. So we'll go for this things called particular Power Automate. Let me go for open. And if you come to Power Automate, we are getting this things called option that is called home, and we are getting this things called flow. Either we can go for click on this things called new, or we can go for click this things called particular flow. Okay. So if you click on this things called no, new, we'll get this things called particular flow. So whatever you want to give this things called name, add a name or one will be auto generated. Okay. So let me go for this things called provide the name March basic program. So let me go for this things called create the particular flow, and you're able to get this things called on the top. You can see right now we're getting this things called March Power Automate March basic program. It will take hardly 30 seconds to create all these things and get things ready. So when you come to this thing called Power Automate, guys, we're getting this things called automatically the two things that is called main and subflow. Okay, so by default we're getting this things called main and subflow. If you run this any program directly from this things called this place, so whatever the program you're going to write in the main, directly we can go for run from here. So let me show you this things called how we can go for create the first program, these things called Power Automate. Let me go for check all these things. If you go for take this things called first activity, so if you go for learn this things called Java.NET, your Python also, so we create the first program that is called hi hello or hello program. The same thing we're going to create into these things called Power Automate. So let me go for this things called take these things called actions. Okay, so here in Power Automate it's called actions, so we're going to search the particular action. So if you want to display any message box, we can take these things called display message. Okay, so we're getting these things called display message. Let me go for this things called main. So you have to go for this things called drag and drop, and you have to keep like that. Okay, so in main here I'm getting this things called message box title. I'm going to pass this same thing that is called message box. Okay, message box to display. Okay, so I'm going to pass this things called how to create post program in Power Automate desktop. Okay, so like this way we can pass these things. Message box icons, there is none here. If you want to go for default button, that is the first button. If you want to close the particular message box, we're getting these things called close message automatically. So if you go for, if you're from a UiPath background or automation anywhere, so here in UiPath we're not getting these things called this option that is called close message box automatically, that is based in this things called Power Automate. Okay, let me go for these things called this like this way. Here I'm getting these things called timeout, that is 3 seconds only, and let me go for click on this things called save. So if we are going to create the first program using these things called main, if you directly run this program from here, you're able to go for click on this things called run file, and you are able to click on this things called run, and you're able to get the answer. Okay, so we are getting this thing called how to create the first program in Power Automate desktop. It's working perfect, and without click on OK button, we are able to close the particular bot. Okay, here if you go for this things called subflows, so that is a part of this things called program. Here by default I'm getting this things called subflow, and when you click on this things called particular arrow, we are getting this things called new subflow. By default we're getting this things called main and subflow. Okay, so you can create the program into the this particular subflow also. So here we can go for click this things called new subflow and click on this things called create here. Let me go for this things called subflow name. Here we can go for click on this things called save. Okay, if you want to change the name, suppose I want to change this things called second program. Suppose I want to give this things called name ID second program. So let me understand this things called how I can run this particular program. That is the second program. That is my second program, guys. We're getting these things called second program. First I like it main, second is this particular second program. Same program. Suppose that if I'm going to take this things called display message box. Okay, so now we are going to take this things called display input dialog box, and that particular variables also will understand and will pass into the display message box. Okay, so display input dialog box, that is same like that input dialog box in the RPA uipath. Okay. So input dialog box, here I'm going to pass this things called guessing who came. Okay. Input dialog box message. Okay. So I'm going to pass this things called auto. Desktop is best RPA to learn in 2025. Okay. So here I'm going to pass this things called input dialog box. That is the particular these things. PowerPoint is the desktop tool to learn in 2025. Okay. So here default value it will come here. Let me go for this things called. Click on this things called save, and by default when you run this particular program, it will automatically store into this particular variable. Okay. So this is the particular title and this is the things called message. Okay. Here let me go for click on this things called save. Okay. After that, please understand, I'm going to take this things called display message. Okay. Here I'm going to pass this things called message. Okay. And here I'm going to take this things called the particular variable. So how to take this particular variable? Here I'm getting this option that is called variables. That is the cross sign is the icons of the select the particular variable. Okay. So I will take this things called user input, and let me go for click on this things called save. I will go for this things called close the message box automatically. I will keep this things called as a 4, and let me go for click on this things called save button. Okay. I will demonstrate you one by one. Let me go for click this things called run the program. So if you want to run this things called second program, please understand guys, main directly we can run from here. If you want to go for run the particular second program, so you're not able to run from here. If you want to go for run directly, we can go for run from here, and we're able to run the program. So here I'm getting these things called guessing game, and Power Automate is the best RPA tool to learn in 2025. Okay. So that is the things we have displayed the title, and here I'm getting these things called second data. Okay. Here user is like the robot is asking. Okay. Robot is asking, so you're able to understand. Let me show you. Let me change this thing so you're able to understand proper. Let me stop also. So I'm going to edit these things, and let me for these things called. So this is a particular input dialog box, so it will automatically come. So directly we have passed that part, and here by default we are getting these things called variable produced. That is called user input. Okay, that is called user input. If you want to change, you can pass these things called. Suppose you want to pass these things called str. That is called string underscore user input. Okay, so let me go for click, and here. We go for pass this particular place, so we can pass these things like that variables. We can go for this particular place, and here you can take these things called str input and click on this things called save button. Let me go for this things called run the program. We can go for run from here. Let me check these things. So here I am going to pass the particular these things, which is the best tool learning, best RP tool to learning 2025. I'm going to pass these things called Power Automate is the one of the best RPA tool to learning 2025. Okay. So here I'm going to click on this things called OK button. Automatically it will display into the particular display message box. Okay. So guys, like this way we can go for create the program using these things called main. This is my first program in the Power Automate, and here if you want to go for these things called second program, we can go for run the particular second program. Okay. Here if you want to go for these things called, let me go for this things called. Okay, again suppose you want to go for this things called run the second program also using these things called main. So directly someone want to go for this things called integrate the particular program. Okay, so one first program, second program, third program. So how to go for integrating the Power Automate also, you can go for take this things called run flow, and whatever the particular flow you want to go for that, you can select from here like this second program, and here I can go for click on this things called save, and you can go for directly, we can go for in mail, we can go for directly run from this things called button that is called run, and we can go for this things called first it will display this things called message box, how to create the first program in Power Automate desktop, and second it will go for this things called pass this things called which is the best, that is the input dialog box. I'm passing this things called Power Automate, it will display like the Power Automate only. So guys, like this way we can create this things called first program. We can go for create the main, we can create this things called second program, and how to go for this things called integrate the using this things called main we have learned, that is called your if particular in main we have done this things called using this things called run sub flow. Okay, so like this way guys, we can go for create the particular program into the Power Automate desktop. If you want to go for this things called cloud, we can go for this things called here like that we have go for this things called click on this things called create, and here I'm getting this things called multiple option. That is the first one is that we're getting this things called automated cloud flow, that is especially for this things called triggered by events. So when you're getting these things called particular event, so if I'm getting these things called any type of events, email, all these things we can create. Okay, and cloud flow, that is especially for these things called triggering like that manually as needed, means if you want to go for create any particular program, we can go for cloud flow. Okay, and trigger we can go like that. Okay, so like this way guys, we can go for create the program into these things called your particular cloud, and this things called guys, we can go for these things called create into these things called your desktop. Okay, so guys, thank you very much for watching this video. If helpful, please try to subscribe and share to the people who want to go for these things called start the career into these things called Power Automate guys. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you guys.